What's going on YouTube? Today we're talking Bitcoins, and its growth is clearly explosive. We got the sudden popularity of everybody wanting to talk about Bitcoins. Everybody wants to get in on Bitcoins. It's going through the roof. It's costing way more than gold. People are willing to spend more money on something that they can't hold over something that they can hold and has been holding its value for since the beginning of time. So we're living in some interesting times here, and I wanted to talk today about what you can do to save your money in the upcoming possible split here, this possible forking incident that's going to take place on August 1st. That's the deadline that was set forth by the powers that be out there to make any kind of changes, and it looks like something is definitely going to happen, and it's all a matter of how you have your money stored. We're not going to take up too much of your time today if I can help it, but this is a complicated subject, so this video might get a little bit long, and I apologize. So if you guys like what you hear, go ahead and click that like button down there, and if you're not already subscribed, please click that subscribe button. So let's just get right into it, guys. Let's figure this out. Alright, so we're going to talk about Bitcoins and the split that's coming up here, the possible fork that could be happening on August 1st. This stuff here could get a little complicated for you guys if you're new to Bitcoin, and then I would just say at that point you definitely want to do your research before you put any more of your money into Bitcoin. Some of these things here I may just kind of roll over and glance over, so if I go by something a little bit too fast, just comment down below and let me know, and I'll do my best to comment back, or maybe I'll make a follow-up video to this stuff. So first thing is, we're looking at today's Bitcoin price. It's down. It's definitely gone down quite a bit for the day, and that's normal, guys. We're clearly seeing a bubble here. That bubble has inflated, and it's slowly now starting to deflate. There's definitely a correction here that's coming up. So while we're all kind of hopefully holding off on buying that Bitcoin now, I wanted to talk about what's going to happen when Bitcoin splits here, when it pops up here, when it splits, and what's going to happen. So it depends on where you keep your money. Do you keep your money in an online wallet, someplace like Blockchain or Coinbase, or do you keep it on an exchange like CEX or Bitstamp or BTCE? It kind of matters where you keep your Bitcoin, simply because your wallet provider may be siding with one end of the market, and if Bitcoin does split, where you sit on the side of that fence is going to matter what your Bitcoin is worth. All right, so now that we know kind of what's going on with Bitcoin, we should all be pretty much familiar with what's been happening here. I want to talk about the different types of forks that there are. So what's a fork? Well, real simple, a fork is like a software update, right? It's somebody's making changes to the code. They want to basically set new rules, new parameters that Bitcoin protocol will follow. So a soft fork is one that is not mandatory. It doesn't need to be done, and it's reversible, so it's backwards compatible. Think along the lines of like your PlayStation 3. The earlier versions of those could play PlayStation 2 discs. Those things are nice to have. It's good to have a backup plan, so if something does fail, you can always resort back to the original and then work your updates out before you do the update. So a soft fork is always, in my opinion, preferred. That's kind of where I would want to lie, just because you can always go backwards on it. You can always revert back and learn from your mistakes should there be any mistakes. Now a hard fork is a mandatory update. Typically these are things like software glitches. You know, the Matrix, they found a hole in the Matrix and they're trying to figure out where it is. They're going to roll out one of these updates, and these have happened before. These are very normal. It's basically everybody agrees, yeah, this update needs to happen, and they do it. Most of us, we don't notice it. It's not a big deal, but those are mandatory, and those are not reversible. So when they do a hard fork update, that's it. You're not going back from that unless you do another hard fork update. So if they do two back-to-back hard fork updates, basically what that's telling you is there was a major problem. They thought they fixed it, they didn't, and they had to roll out another one. So those are your two different types of updates that could happen here. So with this fork that's happening, we basically got a civil war going on here, right? We've got the developers, we've got the miners, and they're all battling to decide which of their updates is the better update for Bitcoin as a whole. And we can see kind of that right here in this chart here. This is your Bitcoin block details. This is going to show you support from the different mining pools. So remember I was mentioning earlier, it matters where you keep your money at. Well, it does, because they may be siding with these guys here. So basically when a Bitcoin transaction takes place, these guys want those transaction blocks to be larger, which and then would hopefully get more mined out in any given day, which is a good thing, I guess, depending on what side of the fence you're on. These are your typical big guys, you know, the big miners, the big companies, the Chinese pools, the Chinese farms, all those types of things. They're very large. They dominate the market here, and that's part of the problem. Is people are worried about the fees that are going along with it, the time that's going along with solving these Bitcoin transactions now. I mean, that was one of the perks of Bitcoin, that you could get it very, very cheap with very minimal fees. And now we're seeing that these Bitcoin fees are going through the roof, and that could be a problem. As you can see, most markets here are siding with the emergent consensus, and the reason why that is it's kind of where Bitcoin has to go. We all know at some point it's going to get there anyway, so why not just do it now while we can? So most of the parties here are siding with the Ant Pool. You can see the companies right in there. Slush Pool is one of the first ones that were ever out. That's one of the companies that I used back when I mined. And you can see that it looks like the split's probably going to happen. You've got your segregated witness, which is SegWit. Now, SegWit basically wants to shrink the file size of Bitcoin transactions, and then it's still going to be its 1 megabit block size like it is now, but they want to make the actual transactions as they sit a little bit smaller. And by doing that, what they're going to do is leave out of a little bit of information that we normally would get, which is, it's a lot of information for people that keep track of that stuff, but most of us, we don't pay attention to it. So the problem with it, though, is we know that this type of split's going to happen. We know that this type of fork has to happen, where the block sizes just have to get bigger. Our computers are bigger now; they can handle the data of doing those transactions. So we need to figure out which way is better. But either way, it's going to happen at some point. So what can you do to kind of save your money, right? So what basically is going to happen when this fork takes place, whether it's August 1st or whether it's a later time? When the fork does take place, it depends on where you're holding your Bitcoin of what's going to happen to you. So it's either all of your Bitcoin will become whatever the new SegWit is, or the core, or all of your Bitcoin will become the new BTU Unlimited, the Bitcoin Unlimited. So it depends on where your wallet is, on what it's automatically going to change to. Now, if you're like me and you keep your money off of a said wallet and you have it as a cold storage wallet, something I'll get into in a second here. If you store your Bitcoin in cold storage, you essentially would double your coins. So you'll have equal amounts of both the core and the unlimited, because there's now going to be two types of Bitcoin out there. So once the split happens, it's kind of important where you keep that money. Are you going to be on all in one, all in the other, or are you going to be smart and split that money up? There's no reason to really have a lot of liquid Bitcoin unless you're doing a lot of transactions, obviously. But if you're into hoarding your Bitcoin, you definitely want to consider hoarding that Bitcoin into a cold storage wallet. So where can you get one? How can you set one up? It's actually really easy. I'm going to show you real quick how you can do that. The first thing you can do here is come over to the Bitcoin store, and I'll have some links down in the description bar below where you can check all this stuff out. There's a little piece of hardware here called the Trezor, and it's basically a wallet for you. It's an offline wallet. It's tamper-proof, water-resistant. You can keep it on your keychain. You can keep it in your sock drawer. It's very cool. One of the nice things with it is not only can you store your Bitcoin in there, but you can also store your Ether, your Litecoin, your Dash, Ethereum, whatever you got. You can store it all on there at the same place, and you don't need to worry about viruses or any of that stuff. It's a very easy thing to use. So if you don't want to go the route of buying an actual hardware wallet like that, something that's encrypted, something like KeepKey or Trezor, if you don't want to buy something like that, you can always make your own offline wallet. In order to do that, you'll want to go to this place here, bitaddress.org. And once you go there, you're going to see something like this where you're screaming your mouse across this thing and dots are showing up everywhere. There's a little box here for you to type and put numbers in. So you're just going to do this for a while until you hit the 100, and then all of a sudden you're going to get a wallet generated for you. Now, there are some asterisks that I would tell you when you create this wallet. You can see here I just made this Bitcoin wallet with this private key. So obviously there's not going to be any money in that. It'd be silly for you to send any money to that, because then somebody can just go in there and take it out because they would have the private key. So this is just for example purposes, guys. You can see how easy it was to make a new wallet basically. And what you would do is you would send all of your Bitcoin to this address. You wouldn't really need to give that out to anybody. You could, but you wouldn't need to. You would just send all of your Bitcoin to that address. You would lock this secret key here up somewhere else and keep that offline, you know, print it out on a piece of paper, put that in your safe, and don't worry about it, because you're not going to need that until it comes time to take your money out. So once you have this address here, let's say you wanted to check the balance of it, you have money going to that account there and you're not paying attention, you want to just see what's going on with it. All you need is the address. You can go take that, head over to blockchain here, type in your blockchain wallet address, and then you're going to get your account balance here. You're going to see how much money you have in it, and you're going to get a history. If you have history in there, that's going to show you when your transactions took place. So you can always keep track of that money, and then when you actually want to take that money out, when you're ready to withdraw that money, at that point you're going to need your private key, and you're going to go over to some place like blockchain here, create a wallet, and you're going to import this address. And the only way you're going to be able to import this address and get the access to the funds is with this private key, which hopefully you safeguard it and you kept that safe. So if you keep your money in an offline wallet like this, when that fork happens, if that fork split, whatever, if that ever happens, you'll be able to dictate where your money goes after the fact, and you'll kind of be covered either way. This would be my suggestion to you guys if you are worried about that fork out there. I tried to keep this video short and sweet and to the point, so I apologize if this is a little bit long. But yeah, that's what I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe. Peace out, YouTube.